Take now, but it's alright. Don't matter, 'cause I won't ever lose the joy you've given me. Wish I could have told you so just once before God set you free. Let it be, 'cause you don't leave me lonely. No, you leave me longing for you. Don't leave me lonely, oh no. I'm longing for you. We could have spent more time together. It's alright. The things I could have said now I'll never. It's alright. Don't worry, child. I believe the prayer we pray for a brighter day. This is why we build our faith on someone who never fades away. I'm here to say that you don't leave me lonely. No, you leave me longing for you. Don't leave me lonely, oh no. Longing for you. Don't leave me lonely. Don't leave me lonely. I'm longing for you. Don't leave me lonely, oh no. And I'm longing for you. Jesus, keep my longing heart from breaking clean in two. Oh, stand by me, Lord, and help me see this through. 'Cause our Father knows how bad it feels to lose someone, to lose someone, to lose a son like you. Don't leave me lonely. Don't leave me lonely. Longing for you. Don't leave me lonely, oh no. Oh no. Don't leave me lonely. You don't leave me lonely, oh. Longing for you. Don't leave me lonely, longing for you. For you. Don't leave me lonely, longing for you. Don't leave me lonely, oh no.
We will not be judged by what we say here tonight, by the quality of our answers, or by any back and forth in words. The folks in our community don't want words. They don't want thoughts and prayers. They don't want discussions. They want action, and we owe it to them to provide it.
Many in legacy media love mass shootings. You guys love it. Now, I'm not saying that you love the tragedy, but I am saying that you love the ratings. Crying white mothers are ratings gold to you and many in the legacy media in the back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Four Persons. The hair stands up in the back of my neck when I hear comments like that. I just, it's just nauseating to me. That's something that we should all be able to come together on, an issue like this. And you get comments like that. Tony Montalto, welcome to the program. I know after 7 years, this can't be any easier for you, but I applaud you for your courage and for what you and the Parkland community are doing. You're such an inspiration to all of us in bringing to the public consciousness the fact that something has to be done.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. Of course, every day since February 14th of 2018 has been a little bit of a rerun. And we awake, with great hope, but then quickly it turns to sadness when we realize that our beautiful daughter, Gina, is no longer with us.
And the worst possible outcome of all would be that she died in vain. That would be the worst possible outcome, and that can't be the outcome. And that's why I know you're doing what you're doing. Tony, there aren't words to describe how awful what happened on February 14th, 2018 was. And most of us have some difficulty getting our minds around the mentality of a person who would commit an atrocity like this. But in the aftermath, emotions are raw. People generally don't know what to say. But what disturbs me is when you hear comments like what we opened the program with today on both sides. I think both sides are prone to say some very unfortunate things, and I think they add unnecessary grief to a situation that's already terrible enough. So I want to address these two examples that I thought were very unhelpful, and I'd like to hear you respond. First, I want you to respond to what the congressman said. I think it's very unfortunate when he says the folks in our community don't want thoughts and prayers. These sentiments were repeated by one of the surviving students at the March for Our Lives in Washington. I just think it's a very unfortunate thing to say because it sends a message of hostility to people of faith who want to reach out and put their arms around you in a time like this. Do you feel like that's really the sentiment, or do you feel like he just chose his words poorly, and what he really wants to say is your reaction can't stop at thoughts and prayers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, Congressman Ted Deutsch has done a lot for our families, without a doubt, over the time he was in Congress. He's a very genuine man. I think that had he just added the word, it can't be just thoughts and prayers. I can't tell you any one of our 17 families that didn't accept and appreciate all the kind thoughts and the prayers for ourselves and our loved ones that were taken from us. I think that's a very important part for families who live through a tragedy like this, that we know that other people actually care. We've heard from people from around the world, quite frankly, the letters, the cards, the outpouring of support. Of course, we appreciate it all, but nothing could replace the children and the spouses that were taken that day. But that doesn't mean that thoughts and prayers are ever unwelcome. But we did need more. And fortunately, our families gathered together to form Stand with Parkland, the National Association of Families for Safe Schools, among other groups that were formed. But Stand with Parkland has been the most successful in changing policy and law in many states, especially here in Florida, and nationally as well, with the help of good people from both sides of the aisle.
I want to talk about the other side because, Tony, I'm a lifelong Republican. I voted Republican in every election that I've ever voted in. That doesn't mean that I have to agree lock, stock, and barrel with everything that every member in my party, goes along with. I have some very strong disagreements with some of the members on some of their positions relative to firearms. But I mean, those disagreements can be respectful. But when you have people like Alex Jones and Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that this event and Sandy Hook, were staged events, crisis actors, and then you have just the despicable comments that Dan Loach made, it's got to make your job harder. It's got to be really disheartening and discouraging.
Well, we've again found good people on both sides of the aisle to work with. Sometimes it's more challenging than not. Certainly, the comments that were played at the opening of the show are very disturbing. Um, you know, I can promise you, these mass shooting tragedies, especially in our nation's schools, are heartbreaking. They're heartbreaking to the communities that suffer and continue to suffer. They are heartbreaking to the families of the wounded that have to deal with watching their children suffer and heal. But of course, most devastatingly, to the families that had someone taken that day. What was done to our families at that school, especially during the investigation when we saw all the failures that occurred, was the worst thing that could happen. Um, and I think that is something that we hope that people will keep in mind, that families, the victims, suffer the most, but that indeed the entire fabric of the community is damaged. The faith in schools to keep people safe, the faith in law enforcement to keep people safe, they all suffer. And each of those entities have to work to win back the trust of the entire community.
Yeah. Tony, returning to the issue of faith, everything that I've read tells me that Gina was a very special person, and that faith, compassion, service, they were just in her DNA, the makeup of who she was. And the same seems true among many of the other victims of various faith traditions. Elena Petty, Jamie Guttenberg, Peter Wang, just three examples that I could cite. Tony, I believe in God, and I believe Gina is in heaven. I lost my own child, my son, Christian, in 1998, and I believe he's there too. Missing him never gets easy, of course, but do you take solace knowing that they're with a loving God, and does it comfort you, inspire you to be the best person you can be, working towards and anticipating that reunion, that one day you'll see her again?
Well, I think that it's true that many of the families were fortunate, and we thought raising our children the right way. I know that my wife and I gave Gina and her brother a Catholic upbringing. Um, you know, Gina had just received confirmation the year before she was taken from us. Um, these traditions were important to our family. Um, yes, I do believe that Gina's in heaven. Uh, I wish she was here with me. And of course, John, I'm sorry you suffered a loss of a child as well. As you know, it's something no parent should have to face. It's very, very difficult. Um, so our condolences to you as well.
Thank you.
But I mean, I always try and be the best person I can be. I think that's all we can do. Um, some people have said, "Oh, Gina's so proud of the work you're doing," but she may be, but that's not the way it should be. I should be proud of what she was doing as she pursued her goals and her dreams. And I think that being taken from our family and from the family of the others is about the worst thing, because they not only hurt you, but it steals your future.
Yeah. So let's talk about what it is that you do, and the genesis for those, if it's possible, to anybody that's watching is not really familiar with this. On February 14th, 2018, a monster walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and shot 34 people in a blind rampage that lasted less than 7 minutes. 17 people died, including your 14-year-old daughter, Gina. A sociopath hell-bent on mass murder, and society is ready to just accept that as the storyline, as the beginning and the end of this tragedy. But in court, in court, you call this person a murdering bastard, and I can't disagree. But your work in this case has shown that there's so much more here, Tony. This atrocity was preventable in the first place, and swift action could have limited the number of casualties. There were so many red flags, so many missed opportunities, so many people that just didn't do their jobs. And this led to this grotesque outcome. Explain the process by which your community moved through that grief and rage to determine the causes and propose solutions so that this never happens again.
All right. So first, I need to correct that the term for the shooter was not coined by me. That was coined by Gina's brother, and he was a very accurate description of who that was. So I was really proud of him for wanting to stand up in court also and speak the truth. However, moving towards, finding solutions and finding ways to prevent these tragedies. It's certainly been a group effort. Some of the law changes we've had have come from members of Stand with Parkland, and some of the other ideas have been through working with fantastic groups. So Stand with Parkland, the National Association of Families for Safe Schools. You can find more information about that at standwithparkland.org. We were founded by all the families who had a loved one taken that day, and we realized that we had to change the status quo. But we also knew that to do that, we had to look more broadly at the issue. So we use what we call our school safety triad. We look at the need to improve the security of the campus. We look at it as the need to improve mental health screening and support programs. And finally, we want to promote responsible firearms ownership should you choose to own one. This isn't a Second Amendment debate. It's a public safety debate. But we have to encourage people who want to own a weapon to take that seriously and be responsible with it. So we know that all three of those things failed our families that terrible February day, and all three of those things push and pull on one another to keep our children and our teachers safe in school. So with that in mind, we were fortunate enough to have Florida's legislature and at the time then Governor Scott come on board and pass the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. Just 3 short weeks after my wonderful daughter Gina, her schoolmates, and her teachers were taken from us. That addressed these 3 areas for Stand with Parkland, and was the first of 7 school safety laws, hopefully soon to be 8. We just passed one this year, waiting for the governor's signature to make that complete. So we've done things in Florida, such as create an Office of Safe Schools. We've created positions where people will have responsibility, such as the person who's the school safety specialist in each school district. We also have a mental health coordinator position in each school district to keep an eye on kids that are getting services from the school to make sure they're on the path for best possible outcome. And that was something that Stand with Parkland came up with, right? That was our idea, and we were able to get it from idea into law. Additionally, we have behavioral threat assessment requirements, and that is the methodology by which students that are or individuals that are expressing concerning behavior can be looked at by a multidisciplinary team, by our school professionals, our mental health professionals, and law enforcement, all coming together to look at that individual and then get them the help they need before they resort to violence. It's a great process what we've done here in Florida, and Florida actually started its own specific behavioral threat assessment and management model. And the real change here is that adding that management piece, because that's what the U.S. Secret Service does when they try and protect our president and others, right? They get people who they identify, and then they make sure that they're, in the right place that they need to be to protect our leaders. Um, that piece we saw fail, unfortunately, um, in Appalachia High School earlier this school year, when we had the police that knew about this student and what a concern he was, and then they failed to manage that situation and continue to keep an eye on him. So we're really proud of the work we've done here in Florida, the consistent march towards safety, and most of those bills have passed, at least with bipartisan support and actually unanimously through our House and our Senate chambers. We've been grateful to then Governor Scott and now Governor DeSantis for keeping that progress going. We worked with the first Trump administration to create schoolsafety.gov, a one-stop shop for school safety. This brings together the federal Department of Health and Human Services, of Justice, of Education, and of Homeland Security, all working together. A very Doge idea before Doge came in, right? We had all these entities working together to curate the information at schoolsafety.gov. It has things from how to help the culture and climate in a school, so kids feel safe and they don't feel the need to bring weapons, to keeping kids safe from diseases. It's got information on how to check your school's active assailant shooter plan. And one of the most important things we have there also is the grant finder tool to help schools, school districts, and states find out the federal grant programs that are available to help improve the security of your school.
Tony, one of the things that really stood out to me about Parkland and Uvalde in particular, the police response was just atrocious in those two instances, and in some other instances. What in particular are you doing to address that part of the equation to make sure the police response is effective to managing these kinds of disasters?
Well, one of the best tools that we had was the creation of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission. That commission has submitted reports to the governor and to the state legislature. They did 2 reports, and of course, they found a lot of issues with the response. So the chair of that commission is Sheriff Bob Galtieri of Pinellas County, Florida, and he's done a fantastic job of requiring procedures throughout the state of Florida, right? To help improve that. We saw Governor DeSantis remove the sheriff of Broward County at the time. He did not train his officers to do the right thing. And it's that training that the officers need, because when they're under stress in these tragic events, they will revert to their training, hopefully, and do the right thing. Sadly, the folks at the Broward Sheriff's Office were not trained to that standard. So we were happy to see Sheriff Greg Tony come in, improve the training. They just built a fantastic new training center here in Broward County, and in the lobby, they have a memorial to each of the 17 victims from the Parkland shooting, so that every time people in the Broward County Sheriff's Office go to training, they have to see that. Now, of course, sadly, we had the Uvalde shooting. In Uvalde, the report shows similar problems with the police response. Now, and again, another report came out about that from the U.S. Attorney General's office, and I know that in the conferences that I speak at, the school safety conferences, and I work with the National School Resource Officers Association. I just got back from the New England School Safety Conference and speaking to a large police audience there. I tell them that yes, our SRO did fail to protect our children and the teachers that day. However, Stand with Parkland firmly believes that having a specially selected, especially trained law enforcement officer in each school does make a difference. Most of the time they're there, they can become a trusted adult, right? They can be part of the fabric of the community to build that relationship between law enforcement and the schools. And when we see that, the kids really enjoy the interaction. We have to remember that no law enforcement officer wakes up and says, "Oh, let's go arrest the kids today." That's not their goal. The goal is to get them and take them out of the path of trouble as best they can. Um, and most importantly, the thing to remember is that law enforcement should never be part of the discipline system in the school. That's the school's job. So law enforcement should be there for security, for safety, and to protect the students and teachers should the worst thing happen, as it did in Parkland.
Yeah. Tony, sometimes the debate about these school shootings and gun safety and all that devolves into two kind of myopic, vantage points. And one side claims that it's all because of easy access to the space, poor security, and very powerful weapons. And others claim it's because the schools have become soft targets. I don't believe it's a either or. It's a both and I think that's the approach that your organization has taken, is a more holistic, comprehensive approach. So, Tony, I want you to imagine that I'm a governor, a senator, a legislature, and I want you to make the case to me of what a good package of legislation looks like to kind of address this issue.
Sure. Well, the first part actually starts with listening, right? So I would ask you what you have in place. And then I would make some recommendations. And sadly, I was in position to do this with the Speaker of Georgia's House just last fall following the Appalachia shooting. So I listened to what they had in place, and then I was able to recommend how to move forward. So some basic things are, let's create the Office of Safe Schools within the state, because we need a focal point to issue information that needs to come out. Next, I would put in a behavioral threat assessment requirement, right? That we have our law enforcement, our mental health professionals, and our school people learning how to work together to spot troubled individuals and then get them to the help that really already exists throughout our communities, right? There's not a lot of sixth graders, though, that are going to go in and raise their hand and say, "I need help." So we need to use this behavioral threat assessment process, again, not to arrest, not to intimidate, but to take individuals showing concerning behaviors and get them the help they need before they resort to violence. So that would be next. Following that, I would say the next piece is some kind of reporting tool, whether it be a hotline that people of, sorry, John, you're in my generation, might use an 800 number to call in threats we see or concerns we have. But we need to get something that works on the mobile phones these days to help get the kids and meet them where they live, which is on their mobile devices. One such app we work with here in Broward County is the Safer Watch app, and they're an 11-in-1, tip reporting platform. They can also do panic button functions, but it's really that tip reporting. It's the ability to take advantage of having the school community, the parents, the teachers, the custodians, and the students themselves become parts of the eyes and ears that protect the school. So I think that is super important. So those would be the three basic steps that I would start with, because again, increasing the amount of information that comes into school and law enforcement professionals so they can investigate it, having a solid program to get individuals the help they need, having someone in charge of the state to bring down the laws that are passed and the policies to the school districts is also essential. Just last week, we were up in Washington, D.C., meeting with congressmen and senators, and we met with Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, and her staff. We met with members of President Trump's Domestic Policy Council. That's the arm of the White House that we worked with, both with the first Trump administration and with the Biden administration. Um, there's a lot of good people in government that want to do the right thing. And I think instead of focusing on the differences that we have, I encourage people to start looking for the things that we have in common and the views that we can actually listen to one another and then make a decision and move forward on some sound policy. Because you were right, John, it's not an either or situation. It's everything that we have to look at to keep our students and teachers safe. And I promise you, if you go in the room full of Democrats and ask them if they want safe schools, everybody's raising their hand. And the Republicans are going to say the same thing. So let's find a way to focus on what we agree on, capture those, put those into policy or law, and then we can sort the other issues out as we go along. But we do see some pushback from both the right and the left. We acknowledge it. We acknowledge the difference of opinion on things. But again, we have to start looking at it's not a constitutional argument. This is a public safety argument.
Yeah. It needs to be pointed out that there were 17 victims in the Parkland tragedy, and they covered every faith tradition and every nationality and every race and every demographic. This is an American problem. This is a problem that affects all of us. And if somebody's not on board with what do we need to do to protect the children, I don't know what's wrong with a person like that. I can't follow that. Let's have our arguments about, the Second Amendment and all these other peripheral arguments we have later. First, let's protect the kids. Tony, I want to talk about the mental health piece. In this country, mental health doesn't seem to be getting better. With the proliferation of counselors and therapies and medications, mental health in this country seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. Do we need to do a top to bottom audit of the way that we approach mental health in this country? Because certainly that's a factor in this school shooting epidemic.
And I think we need to, understand that, growing up, being a teenager is hard. So that's the first thing. And I think that, getting a little bit back to families and having concern, looking at after our children and even the community looking after one another, having a little more empathy for those people we meet. Um, Oftentimes, we work also with the Columbia Protocol, which is a suicide prevention methodology. And often the way to stop that suicide or way to stop that thing is to just express some concern about the individual. We've heard, uh, amazing stories of counselors or just even, teachers or other parents who express concern about an individual and that was able to help them. So we need a little more kindness and empathy in the world. Our mental health system, we can't, we have to realize that not every kid who's having a problem, um, needs years of therapy, right? But we also need to recognize that the effects of COVID and the isolation and the effects of social change with social media and online gaming, the experience is different now than it was when I grew up. We used to be outside till the streetlights came on and maybe later. But now they stay inside and they play with each other online and um, you know, we need to encourage the interaction, the face-to-face time, the ability to talk with people who you don't agree with, and as you said earlier, have respectful disagreements. It's okay. They're not terrible people. Excuse me. And we need to stop looking at other Americans as our enemies. I think that's a real problem that we have. Um, you know, America's got plenty of enemies outside our borders. Um, Inside our borders, we have people who we may not agree with, but they are still Americans, and we need to start remembering we're the United States of America and coming together as much as we can without letting the media and the social media rhetoric and echo chambers drive us apart. I think that's something that's missing, and I hope to see. And as we know, almost all faiths encourage that, right? They encourage people to come together and have kindness and mercy towards one another.
Yeah. On that note, I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican all my life because I agree with certain principles of the Party of Lincoln. But that doesn't mean that my thoughts and prayers are not with President Biden today on the news of his unfortunate situation. And it's God, country, family, party should be at least fourth. And we should be praying for each other and lifting each other up and figuring out how we can work together. I know that's what my faith calls me to do. It's the same faith that you share. And the ironic thing about it is there were a number of those kinds of people among the Parkland victims who had that heroic virtue. I remember seeing a picture of Gino with Jamie Guttenberg, where they were volunteering for a children's advocacy organization. Unfortunately, both of them were victims of this tragedy. But for a child that young, 14, 15 years old, to be involved in that kind of mentorship and that kind of social outreach gives me hope that there's all hope is not lost. There still are some shining stars out there. Tony, some people are extraordinary because they do extraordinary things, and some people are extraordinary because they do ordinary things against extraordinary circumstances. And I want you to know that I think people like you and the other Parkland families are doing heroic things, and it's showing the world what genuine faith looks like. And you have made a determination to deny evil its victory. And I just want you to know the grace that's been shown by you, your wife, your son, and the others. It gives me hope, and it gives me strength in this fallen world. Do you feel Gina and the others are calling you forward from above? Do you feel their strength? Are you able to feel their strength and kind of channel it when your strength is kind of waning?
Um, Sometimes I think the more open you are to trying to recognize the signs of that, you'll see it. Um, Immediately after the shooting, it was not something you wanted to hear, right? Not something you want to acknowledge, and let's face it, something like this tests your faith, losing a child or having a child taken from you. But I think as time has gone on, we've seen more signs of that, and I've been able to feel that on different occasions. Some days aren't good, right? Some days we just still can't function, and that's the nature of the grief um, that we feel. But other days we are energized and we are able to get out there and share the story of Gina and Luke and Elena and Carmen and Chris and the others, because every time we change a policy or a law, it's not a reflection really on myself or the other parents or the other spouses, right? It's a reflection on who was taken from us, from those children who had such bright futures out there, from the teachers and coaches that were killed that day, who were, parts of the school community, giving of themselves to their students each and every day. It's important to remember who they were and their legacy um, as part of our community, part of our families prior to this horrific event. They're so much more than just victims.
Tony, something very amazing happened while you and I were sending emails back and forth, discussing setting this up. We had a new pope elected, and he was an American. I didn't really see that coming. I don't know if you did, but I'm really hopeful that our new American pope is going to help heal some of the divisions that we have, not only within the church in this country, but within the country itself. We are not doing a very good job as a nation to live up to that name, United States of America, and I hope that's something that's going to get better, and I believe the new pope is going to play a role in that. Do you agree with me?
Um, I first of all wish him all the luck, and was equally surprised but happy to have this first American pope. I think our country and the experience here is different than in many around the world because we are a melting pot. We have been our greatest when we all work together. I think that is something that's so important. When our country focuses on something, we can get it done. But again, we need to remember to be determined yet compassionate. We need to have that kindness and that realization that we need to um, have discussions. We need to be able to listen. We need to be able to compromise, and that's something that's really almost irrevocably be broken within the federal government. Again, I talk to good people on the right side of the aisle, good people on the left side of the aisle, and they're so frustrated by not being able to get things done in Congress. Um, and I share their frustration. We shouldn't have the executive branch ruling by executive order, and that's no offense to President Trump or President Biden or President Obama. We should have our representative democracy working better for us. And frequently I call on Congress to do that. I ask them to try and reach across the aisle to have those debates, and even in different communities, right? Let's sit down, let's talk. Let's find solutions instead of throwing up roadblocks and problems. You know, one of the first times I spoke about what we needed to do to stop this tragedies from happening, I said compromise. It's not a dirty word. We use it every day. Husbands and wives compromise to have a happy home. In commerce, the buyer and the seller work together to find something they can agree on. And indeed, our government depends on the three branches of government working together and the two parties we have in this nation to find that compromise position to move our nation forward. No one party, no one group has all the answers.
Hmm. Tony, I just want to thank you for coming on. I know this doesn't get any easier. But I have talked to family members of I think almost half a dozen of the Parkland family, and I would just ask just one last favor of you as I let you go here. I'd ask you to express to each of the families our heartfelt sympathies, prayers. Assure them that we're praying for them every day. We hold them in our hearts, and that we're so appreciative of what you're doing. The old adage: you can curse the darkness, or you can light one candle. And you guys are lighting candles, and I just want you to know that we out here see it, and we love you guys. We appreciate you for what you're doing, and you're a model and inspiration to all of us. We just want you to know that.
Oh, thank you, John. Thanks for having us on. And again, more information can be found at standwithparkland.org. Additionally, we are working on building the memorial to the victims of the shooting, right? It's not a memorial to the shooting. It's a memorial to remember the victims. And that's at parkland17.org. More information can be found about that.
Okay. And just before we go, anyone that would want to make a donation to either one of those causes, what was the best way for them to do that?
There's ways to donate through both portals. Again, standwithparkland.org to donate for our advocacy, right? That's where we fight to make change or work to make change and bring people together. For the memorial, we have parkland17.org, so we can make sure that there's some place where we can come and remember all the victims of this shooting and who they were uh, prior to this tragedy, because again, they were fantastic people. They were parts of our community, and you'll recognize a lot of their good traits in people in your community.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask one more thing. It's not accurate to say that there were 17 victims of the Parkland tragedy. There were 19. And I just want to know what your organization is doing to help those other two families, two victims.
Well, John, I'm going to beg to differ, because there were 17 victims of the shooting that day. The other two victims are tragically because of mental health issues. So we promote mental health issues. We promote things like we have here long term. One thing I frequently say when I'm up speaking to the Domestic Policy Council is that we need to provide help for communities much longer than after the cameras leave, right? Because they still need help after that. And we promote the loss, and we encourage people to hear the stories of those people when we have our national suicide prevention pieces and when we have our mental health days. While tangentially attached to the Parkland shooting, there were only 17 victims taken by that perpetrator. The others are sadly victims of the event. And because of that, we support mental health. We support, we help pass 4 federal laws. The Fix NICS Act, which worked on closing some loopholes in the background check system. The Stop School Violence Act, which provided dollars for schools to have behavioral threat assessment teams and to harden themselves a little bit. And then the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act was passed. And that bill, that law, has our DNA written into it. It has dollars to protect the schools, dollars for mental health, and provisions for responsible firearms ownership. So one of the things that's in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is the 988 National Suicide Lifeline Prevention, right? We supported that. We also have dollars for 14,000 more mental health professionals in our nation's schools because of that law. Um, you know, we work on that very much so, and we do feel for the families that suffered that tragedy. But again, we know there were just 17 that were taken that day by the monster. So
I wasn't.
Sorry for the disagreement, but we have
No,
that.
we're saying the same thing. We just,
Yeah.
I guess I got a little clumsy with the way I was trying to say it, because I wasn't trying to be disrespectful at all. All I was trying to, I guess I was trying to magnify the point that you just made, is that this type of tragedy doesn't begin and end the day of the crisis. It reverberates, it ripples out, and it has catastrophic effects on people for years, as evidenced by what we were saying. So we're saying the same things. I apologize for the clumsiness of my words. There was no disrespect intended.
No worries.
I promise you that.
I understand, John.
Okay. Well, Tony, thank you so much, and God bless you. And I will continue, and we will continue to support the work that you do through the 4 persons. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate, what you're doing as an advocate and showing what real courage and faith looks like. Thank you so much, Tony.
Well, thank you, John, and thanks for having this important program and trying to bring people together.
God bless you. Have a good day.
Bye.